Mr. Contampasis, do you want to start or?
We're live.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Contampasis, and along with Ms. Tanisha Sullivan, we co-chair the exam school task force that is charged with coming up with a permanent recommendation to the school committee regarding admissions to the exam schools. I'd like to welcome you all to this student listening session of the exam school task force. Because this is a remote session and a public session, I will ask Ms. Parvex to call the roll. Ms. Parvex, if you will.
Yes, thank you. Just a second. I realized I didn't have that page up. I apologize. So, Mr. Acevedo, Ms. Aguirre, Mr. Kreger,
Present.
Mr. Chernow,
Present.
Dr. Freeman Wisdom, Ms. Grassa, Ms. Lam, Ms. Nagasawa,
Here.
Ms. Garrett,
Present.
Ms. Tang,
Here.
Ms. Waite, Ms. Sullivan, and Mr. Contampasis.
Present. We are pleased to be offering live simultaneous interpretation this afternoon in Spanish, Haitian Creole, Cape Verdean, Portuguese, Somali, Cantonese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, Arabic, and American Sign Language. After I finish introducing the interpreters, we will activate the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen. Click the icon to select your language preference. And I would like to add, before I introduce the interpreters, when and if you decide to speak, do so slowly so that the interpreters have sufficient time to present their comments to their respective audiences. Our Cantonese interpreter today is Anna Tse. Anna, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Contampasis. 早晨，大家好。午安，大家好。我係 Anna， 我係你今日嘅廣東話同步翻譯員。一陣間你見到嘅地球儀嘅時候，咁你揀 Cantonese， 咁你就會正式進入咗廣東話嘅翻譯頻道噶啦。如果你用手機或者係用 iPad 嘅話咧，咁你要撳呢個3個點，咁啊撳落去咧就寫住更多，咁你就揀 Cantonese， 亦都會成功進入咗嘅翻譯頻道啦。Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our Mandarin interpreter is Terry Yin. Would you please give instructions in Mandarin, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 大家好，我的名字叫 Terry， 我是你们的普通话翻译。待会呢，你们在屏幕下方会看到一个地球的图标，你点一下这个地球的图标，然后呢，你就可以选择 Chinese， 就是国语的翻译哈。如果大家是需要听广东话的话，你也可以选择广东话。如果呢，你们是用这个手机或者是平板电脑上来的话呢，你们可以点3个点。然后再选择翻译的服务，再选择这个相应的语言，就可以听到普通话的翻译服务了。好，谢谢大家 ，Thank you.
Thank you. Our Vietnamese interpreter is Duyen Tru.
Good afternoon. My name is Duyên Triệu. I'm Vietnamese interpreter. Xin chào các quý vị. Nếu mà anh chị có cần thông dịch người Việt thì hãy chọn cái ngôn ngữ tiếng Việt ở dưới quả cầu dưới màn hình và chúng tôi sẽ cung cấp thông dịch liên tục cho các anh chị. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Haitian Creole interpreter is Sergio Saint-Hilaire.
Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Sergio Saint-Hilaire, Haitian Creole interpreter. Bonjour tout le monde et que nous très contents pour nous avoir aujourd'hui et que pour nous parler de tout ça que y a dit pour nous traduire pour. C'est un plaisir pour nous faire ça et que tout ça que tu as bien pour dire, vous avez besoin de dire, pas hésiter pour dire et n'a traduire pour nous demander pour cliquer glove ou qui est en bas d'écran là et que vous avez besoin d'entrer dans la conversation, c'est comme ça on va entrer. Tout ça pour dire pour moi, souhaiter pour amuser dans séance. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, sir. Our Spanish interpreter is Randolph Dominguez. Mr. Dominguez, will you please give the Zoom instructions?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Content Pasas, and good afternoon to everybody listening. Muy buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. Mi nombre es Randolph Domínguez. Voy a ser su intérprete simultáneo del idioma español. Para accesar el idioma español, por favor, buscar en la parte inferior de su pantalla un icono que es el globo terráqueo. Ahí van a presionar y van a buscar el idioma español. Y ahí podrán escuchar. Si están utilizando un celular, por favor, utilicen los 3 puntos en la mano superior derecha de su pantalla y seleccionan el idioma español para poder escuchar una traducción simultánea de la reunión del día de hoy. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, sir. Our Cabo Verdean interpreter is Josiane Lopes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Content Passos. Meu nome é Josiane, se ser meus intérpretes de crioulo, para ter acesso à interpretação simultânea, clica no globo na parte inferior do seu ecrã e seleciona Cabo Verdeano. Na telemóvel, seleciona 3 pontos na parte superior direito. Obrigada. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Portuguese interpreter is Christiane Lettner.
I believe she's not, she hasn't joined the meeting.
Okay. Our Somali interpreter is Fatima Hassan.
Thank you, sir. Galab wanaagsan dhammaantiin waxaan idin sheegayaa in maantay aan idin hayno qof haddaad danaynaysaan in idinkugu tarjumo luqadiina Soomaaliga ah in idin tarjumaya adinkood maaragtay ay isgarab taala ay u socoto hadalka ayaguna ay ku hadlayaan luqadooda annagana aan idin tarjumayno. Marka haddii aad u baahatid inaad maaragtay heshid tarjumaadaas waxaad taabataa meesha hoose ee shiishada ku taala oo dhehaysa globalka ama qaaradda adoo taabanaya waxaad helaysaa luqadda Soomaaliga. Waa mahadsantiin. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Arabic interpreter is Ahmed Al-Rubaye.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ahmed Al-Rubaye. I'm your Arabic interpreter today. مرحبا جميعا، أنا اسمي أحمد الربيعي، أنا مترجم اللغة العربية لهذا اليوم. بإمكانكم الاستماع إلى الترجمة باللغة العربية بالذهاب إلى أسفل الشاشة. ستشاهدون علامة الكرة الأرضية، اضغط على هذه العلامة ستخرج لك خيارات اللغات، اختر اللغة العربية وانقر عليها، ستتمكن من الاستماع إلى اللغة العربية. شكرا جزيلا. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We also have American Sign Language interpreters, Erin Foley and Andrew Pidkameni. Would you just introduce yourselves? Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone, first of all, to activate the interpretation icon at the bottom of the screen. And a reminder again, speak at a slower pace to assist our interpreters. I also, Ms. Parvex, have noticed that Ms. Lum and Pastor Acevedo have joined the meeting today. Would you please add them to the attendance list?
Thank you, I will.
I am now pleased to introduce the 2 students who serve on the exam school task force, who this afternoon will co-facilitate the listening session. I'm pleased to introduce from Boston Latin Academy, Mr. Simon Chernow, and from Boston Latin School, Ms. Zoe Nagasawa. I'll turn this now over to Ms. Nagasawa.
Thank you, Mr. Contemplasis, and thank you to all of you who are attending for giving up part of your very warm and sunny Saturday afternoon to be with us today. It is the goal of this session to hear from you the youth of Boston and the people who will be most affected by the exam school admissions policy to hear what your thoughts and opinions are about what the policy should be in coming years. So there are a couple people who have formally signed up for public comment, and we will first hear from them. And then once we've exhausted that list, we will open the floor up for anyone else who wants to contribute any thoughts and opinions. And it can be a little informal. You can raise your hand in Zoom and basically share what you have to say and bounce off of each other and have more of a discussion. Before that happens, though, we do want to give this conversation a little bit of context. So as I'm sure most of you know, for the past 20 or so years, it has been the policy that admissions to exam schools has been based on a private exam and on students' 5th and 6th grade GPA. Given the pandemic, however, the district decided to suspend that policy for 1 year, and they came up with a temporary policy for the people who are applying for the school year of 2021-2022. And that policy takes into account students' zip code and their 5th grade fall and winter GPA, or their 4th grade MCAS score. So essentially, each zip code will be roughly proportionately represented in all 3 of the exam schools under this policy. And invitations were just sent out this past week, so the process is ongoing. That's a very quick overview of what the past has been like, but it's not the focus of this task force and not the focus of this listening session to talk about past decisions. We're trying to decide what future policies should be, as Mr. Contenpassus mentioned, as Mr. Chernow will further discuss now.
Yes, thank you, Zoe. So yeah, we're here because we want to do our best to reach out and make sure we get student input from all across the city. We're trying to best represent students. We both go to an exam school, so we have somewhat of an insight of the experience, but we're both on the committee that is going to submit a recommendation to the superintendent to decide on how exam schools should permanently be ran moving forward. So we're trying to hear from students and what they think should be the best, because, sorry. We're trying to hear from students because we believe that they have the most real life experience as to what is going on, because we actually live the day in, day out experience of exam schools or non-exam schools or wherever you end up in high school. So we want to hear from students, but of course it's open to everyone. But our main goal is to hear from students to try and further input us on our decisions that we make moving forward. Also, if you know someone who couldn't make it or have more to say.
Simon, please slow down.
Sorry. If you have more to say or would like to further talk to us, feel free to reach out to us by email. I'll put my email in the chat so that way you guys can reach out. Sounds good. Back to Zoe.
Thank you. So I think we are ready to begin the public comment and the actual listening of this session. So Ms. Parvex, do you want to call up the people who have signed up?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Nagasawa and Mr. Chernow. We have 4 speakers today, and please state your name, affiliation, and what neighborhood you are from before you begin. When I call your name, please raise your hand virtually in Zoom. Also, please make sure you're signed into Zoom with the same name you signed up for public comment. That will allow us to identify you when it's your turn to testify. Our first speaker today is Walter Wexler, followed by Suri Yang and Vianney Diaz. So I will see if I can find them. Walter, nope. Walter Wexler. No. Suri Yang. Vianney Diaz. Vianney Diaz. Can you hear me? Okay.
Looks like she just needs to. She was here. She just needs to unmute.
She
Yeah.
needs to unmute. Vianney Diaz.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. I definitely want to be here for the meeting just to learn more. I signed up by accident in the other link, but
No problem, thank you.
thanks.
Next speaker we have is Martin Chan. Martin Chan. No. So I think that is all the people that had signed up. So if any attendees that didn't sign up but that wish to speak, you can raise your hand, as Ms. Nagasawa said. So I see that we have someone here. Shen Hong Yang. Shen Hong Yang, you can speak. Hello, are you here?
I think he might still be in the attendees and he needs to be moved up.
Yeah, now I can't find. I think they actually just disappeared. Yeah, I can't find them. So we don't have anyone else signed up, and I don't know if Ms. Nagasawa, you want to try to ask people?
Sheng Hong's hand is up again. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Shen Hong Yang, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay, you go ahead.
Hello, my name is Suri Yang. I am a 6th grade student. I wanted to go to the Boston Latin School. I work hard in school in order for a good future. I was among the top 10% on my 4th grade MCAS, and in 6th grade, I took the MAP test and I received a 99 percentile. Previously, admission to the BLS was determined by taking an exam, but due to the ongoing pandemic, it was canceled. Now the BLS is using admission by zip code and previous GPAs. The reason this is a problem is that the new system is racially biased against Caucasian and Asian American families due to the majority of students getting in for the past years being Asian American and Caucasian. This is unfair due to the fact that we work hard to get in. We can't just judge based off one's race. That is simply unfair. And we do not get in based off of race. It is not judged by race. It's because we work hard. And recently, I received the info that I was among the bottom 20%, which doesn't make sense considering my past few grades in school.
So basically, she is in the bad emotion and emotion. I don't know whether I can add some comment on this.
Sure, you want to add a comment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, so previously when we live in the mountain area, so we try to send our kids to the Mystic Valley charter school, but this charter school was by lottery. So we tried twice, but we didn't win the lottery. So unfortunately, we lose the seat because of the bad luck. But we also get a lesson from this that we told we told our daughter, say, if you base your future on the luck, there are lots of uncertainty. And you need to work hard to win the seats. So that's why she has been consistently a top student since the kindergarten. And on the and I say, if you work hard, then you probably can go to the school, the dream school you like to by your performance. And so that's why on the fifth, after graduation from the Melrose Elementary School, we decided to move to Boston and hope he can take his exam and eventually enter the Boston exam school. But this exam was canceled due to the pandemic. We cannot understand why this admission criteria is just based on the first 2 semesters of fifth grade. We know that fifth grade was also screwed up by the pandemic. And this is also, and also since my daughter come from, his scores come from Melrose Public School, they choose different system. And they try, so based on my daughter's, those exams, such as math, MCAS or math, he is absolutely belong to top 10%. But now, after the conversion, she becomes the bottom 20% in the whole Boston population. Think about this. So most of the Boston public school ranked between like 2 or 3 out of 10. Melrose ranked most time 8 to 9 out of 10. So this 2 is not comparable either. And also the conversion is not accurate. So they only give 10 like A to E. So you know they standard based report card. So they give 4 grade, excellent, meeting the standard, progress, and not accepted. So they give like A to E. So A, but boarding school system, A plus. So from A plus to A plus will give 12%, 12 points. But now for people from EPN system, they can only get the maximum score is only A, so not 11 points. And also they transfer the M to the P, to the B. That's like 9 points. And based on the score, because my daughter got the MCAS, so we can line up that. We know how good the M and P, E is. Much better than B or B plus. So that's why we cannot understand. My daughter, at least talent student, converted to the bottom 20%. So that's definitely a joke. So I don't know. There are, so this year's admission, there are lots of things. I think we should improve. Or lots of things needed to improve, and also the zip code is very ridiculous. If the zip code is wrong, it's the parent is wrong. Okay, children cannot decide which zip code they live. The parents decided where they live. So if you take account that the factor that cannot control by the student, that's totally wrong. Okay, parents decided where they live. If you take a zip code as a huge factor to determine where the student can come to the exam school. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. This is Simon speaking. Are we gonna be able to continue conversation, or we want to open it to more people who want to speak?
Okay.
I'm gonna just ask my question then, unless someone. I was just wondering, Mr. Yang. Hi, I'm sorry for your child's experience. I was wondering if you had any suggestion for how we move forward, since that year is kind of unfortunately already happened. Like, what your suggestions would be, or what your daughter's suggestions would be as someone who was a student, to further the process of the exam schools and to make it and move for a more permanent process.
The thing is, I think the conversion. First of all, the conversion is not, I think, dramatically underestimated her performance. That's why you can convert a 20%, like top 10% student, to the bottom 20%, especially a student from to the Boston public school system. That's really unbelievable. Nobody can believe that.
Mr. Yang, are you referring to the GPA conversion? I just want to make sure that we understand your experience. I think you're describing that your child had grades from another school district.
Yes, from Melrose Public School. So they use excellence, then meeting the expectation, then progress, and not accepted. So it's standard-based report.
So the districts from which you came in Melrose did not use letter or number grades. They used a standards-based, and your child received an M, which was converted to a 9, you said, which would be a B. And therefore, your child did not rank as highly with this all GPA process. Is that what you're describing?
Yes. So that's why. So every her teacher said Survey is a strong student. Okay, and now he become the bottom 20, and this is not acceptable and cannot be tolerated. This is a huge mistake. And also, I don't know why, because most people know that the GPA is descriptive, okay, not accurate. And also, the difference is so small. If you use MCAS or MAP, the score can definitely differentiate student based on the performance. If you use A, B, C, D, F, then most people will aggregate at the same level. You don't really know who is better, who is worse. And now here comes the zip code. When people tie to each other, the student in those preferred zip code get the priority. I think that's what the committee probably looking for, expecting. But this is unfair. Okay, so like when if you are an employer, you hire people based on their zip code or based on their face, their skin color, where they are from, not based on their capability.
Thank you for sharing your experience.
Thank you, Mr. Yang.
You are very welcome. Thank you for listening to me.
We have someone else raising the hand, Emmanuel Bogomolny.
Hi, so I'm a student at Boston Latin School, and so I was just wondering, I had some questions about like what criterias would the working group be interested in, and if you're interested in several criterias, like for example, if you did have a test, like weighing it less, but then also having different criterias of socioeconomic status as well as GPA and like schools. And I also had one more question. If like the amount of years or like if the student had attended BPS was taken into account, how would you accommodate or for immigrant families who have not had the chance to be at BPS due to not living here? Thank you.
I'm happy to respond to that if we're permitted. I'm jumping in because unfortunately I have to sign off in a couple of minutes, and so if you don't mind, Mr. Chernow and Ms.
Yeah,
Nagasawa.
go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's a really important question, Emmanuel, and it's something that I know we're planning to, I hope, round robin in the task force, be able to say some of the indicators that each of us is interested in. So your question actually prompts us to answer it for the first time on this task force. So I won't get into too much detail, but I will say that I do think it's very important that we think about more than one measure. As you know, Mr. Yang just described, when something hinges exclusively on one thing, it's potentially a less reliable indicator than two things, for example. And so this year in this emergency process, the two things involved students' grades and then accounting for some geographical diversity in the schools. I think as we come out of the pandemic and have more opportunities available to us, I think it is important for us to seriously consider an assessment that ensures that students are on grade level at schools, because as families have described, sometimes grades can not necessarily indicate the curriculum, or there's a lot of different variance in grading. That said, also, though, there are sometimes students who really do have the drive and skills to absolutely thrive in exam schools who aren't necessarily the strongest exam takers. Those are just two different examples. There are a lot of models that we've heard about over the past several weeks. Most recently, we heard from Detroit Public Schools that talked about very similar things to what you're describing, where students were able to get additional considerations based on the school type they went to, or perhaps where they lived. We heard from Chicago that also looks at the socioeconomic background of the student. But I do want to note your comment is so important that if we were to consider the number of years that someone has been in a city or a school, I do think lifting up that point you just made about the potential disadvantage to recently arriving students is really insightful. So I really appreciate that feedback.
As Ms. Garrett said, do the task force members want to go around and describe what factors they are thinking about in terms of what future policy might be?
If I may, I think, Ms. Nagasawa, we're planning on raising those issues as early as this coming Tuesday. So I would suggest that the task force wait until Tuesday's session to provide their particular concerns around not only the existing process, but moving forward. There will be additional opportunities for folks to participate in the public sessions, but I would like to hear specifically from the students as to what their thinking is regarding the criteria that they might recommend.
Yeah,
Mr.
this is Simon.
Contepasos. Oh, go ahead, Simon. I was just pointing out to Mr. Contepasos that you had your hand up, as did Mr. Gregor.
Yeah, this is Simon speaking. I was just gonna jump in and wonder if we could, like Mr. Contepas was saying here, this, I forget this, I can't find. Why don't
You okay?
Why does that always happen to me? I get muted out of nowhere. Okay, well, anyways, wow. Yes, the muting. I was just gonna say, I wonder if maybe the person who just spoke their testimony would want to come back and say some of their ideas for what they think could work. The space is yours if you feel comfortable to. No worries if you don't feel comfortable.
Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, the more we hear from the stakeholders, the more we have an opportunity to consider the options that need to be made. Mr. Krager?
I was just going to respond to the last question of our last speaker, which was if you provided a weight to students based on the number of years they attended BPS, how would you account for families who had recently moved to Boston? And it's easy to set that weight with a denominator that's based on the number of years that you've been here. And we can talk more about that when we talk more about factors next week or otherwise, but I did want to say it's on our minds as well, and it's something that can be accounted for in direct response to your question.
I see we have Emmanuel Bogamoni raising her hand again.
Hi, thank you for answering my questions. And as for what Mr. Cherno, sorry if I say your name wrong, said, I guess, I mean, I don't have like really any like full-fledged ideas, but I think if there were to be a test, like the MAP test, for example, definitely like for it to not weigh as much as how the ISE used to be weighed, you know, like, and because, you know, there's always the tutoring and certain people have more access to better education and things like that. I do think that also like GPA can always be like manipulated. You know, like in private schools, like they can wait, or like I forget what it's called, but like when they like up the GPA a lot. I think like maybe having like a certain amount set for like maybe like 5 kids, or like I don't know how many kids from like each Boston public school or something like that, because at BLS I do find it's like so many kids from certain schools that are in like quote unquote better neighborhoods and like more resourceful, and then there's not many kids from other certain schools. And I also think that if there were to be recommendations, that is also always biased as well. So I mean, in all honesty, like almost anything can be like gamed and rigged, but I think having a bunch of criteria like you know, like parents, like socioeconomic status, or like parental education maybe, and you know, more specific criteria would help, so that it could not be you know, like played as much as how the ISE and GPA was before. So yeah.
Thank you. Those are some great ideas. I think we're all here listening and learning from you. So I really appreciate you bringing your ideas to the table. I know I'm thinking of a few, so for sure.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, Lena, were you?
I was just going to ask if you wanted to ask other students.
Yes. Is there anyone else who is attending who would like to share their thoughts about the future policy or respond to anything that has been said earlier today? Feel free to raise your hand if you'd like.
I see we have Huya J. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, I didn't actually sign up for asking questions. So can I have 2 minutes to share some comments from our family's experience?
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to share that my son is a sixth grader at Boston Public School. So he has applied for BLS this year. Unfortunately, he didn't get into BLS. We just got to know a few days ago. He got into another exam school. So the question I have is that this time, I think the criteria was mainly based on the first 2 semesters of the 5th grade. But in our case, we have raised the question also to the Boston Exam School admission office. My son suffered a very serious concussion accident at school in the first semester of the 5th grade. So that semester, he didn't actually have the chance to focus on the study because the doctor advised he had more rest and do not spend too much time on studying or too many exercise. So that definitely impact his grades, but historical grades and also the sixth grade grades are very good. Most of them A+. So given this special situation, we were not actually considered in due to this special situation. So I just wonder, moving forward, for this type of special situation, will the students be given special evaluation, or it will be just based on the same criteria? So pretty much that's my question.
Zoe, you want to answer this one?
Feel free to.
Sure. Well, that's a great question because that's what this task force is for. So we haven't come up with a decision for how we plan on moving forward for what the exam school decision-making process should look like. So it's good to hear concerns about things that could come up, like a student not being able to fully participate academically due to a health issue and how that can affect their grades. So I appreciate you for bringing that up. But we have not finalized a decision for how the exam school process will work next year. So if you have any ideas or any thoughts on how you think it should work, feel free to throw those on the table and speak them now if you want to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share their thoughts or experiences? Yes, Ms. Tung.
May I ask a question of the attendees? See if anybody answers. I'd like to hear what folks on the line think about recommendations or essays as potential factors in the admissions process. Essays from the students or recommendations from teachers or community leaders.
Ryan Valentine, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please unmute yourself.
I think recommendations would be a pretty good idea. Just in general, essays, I don't know, because there's already an exam. So if you're going to replace the exam with some sort of essay, maybe, but I don't know. I feel like that seems like a bit much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Emmanuel Bogomolny.
Hi. I'm back. So I think that an essay that can always like people could get like tutors to like edit their essay and like or not even write it themselves honestly, and like some kids have better access to like learning how to write essays. And I also this isn't like really about the students, but I would just kind of feel bad for whoever has to read through like so many essays. I feel like that's a lot. um as for recommendations, I mentioned this before, like they can be biased. So like you're never really sure, like, is this teacher, do they really recommend the student, or like are they just doing it because the student and the parent is like pressuring them to? So especially like from a private school, like private schools are really small, and like teachers also have better chance to get to know their students better. So like that can also be kind of like a mixed bag.
Mr. Acevedo.
I just, Emmanuel, you've made a couple of references in your earlier comment and now to, and I think you actually used the language gaming, the process of gaming the system. And of course we completely understand that term, and yeah, it's a certainly one of the concerns we would have is to find an admission system that, if not completely game proof, would at least be game resistant. I would love to hear from the students, whether it's you, Emmanuel, or any of the other students here, what suggestions you would have for us if we were to assign you right now an essay, and the project was this: create a game proof or a game resistant admissions policy for the exam schools. And in fact, hey, you have an essay assignment, but you get to speak out loud. All right, that's your assignment. I would love to hear from you folks how to create a game proof or a game resistant admissions policy. Who would like to? And there's no way you can flunk. Okay, so there's no way you can fail this unless we don't hear your input. So who would like to take on this assignment and help us figure out how to create a game proof or game resistant admissions policy to the exam schools? If you're stumped, the grown-ups are stumped too. No worries about that. You see
Maybe you
what I
want to
mean?
set,
So
maybe you want to set a word total.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think it is really difficult to think of something, which is why I also, in all honesty, I don't think there is a way to have a completely non-gameable system, because I feel like in any system, no matter how equitable it really is, I feel like people with privilege and people who really have the means and the desire to will always be able to somehow game something. And I mean, I think that's how it is with everything in life. However, I mean, I do think there's definitely ways to make it a lot more equitable. Like, for example, even just this year, by removing that test, that was a really, really amazing first step, because that test was never equitable for students of color and students with less privilege than others. I personally don't think that a standardized test, will ever be equitable. However, like if there is no way to avoid having a test, having it weigh less, having weight on, like zip code, but not just zip code, more specifically like the socioeconomic status of each person, because, in a zip code, although it is a general good consensus of somebody's life, it also like you never know how somebody is living in that zip code. So like that can also be that can let some people slip through the cracks when they, you know, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that this is something that is really difficult. And I mean, I personally, I'm very excited to see the results of this year and how the diversity is going to change. I mean, next year is my last year at the school, but I really, really do hope that the next class is more diverse. And each year it does continue to get more diverse, but I really hope that this year, with just this change so far, will make at least some sort of difference. So, I mean, I think just building off of things like that, and I think definitely having a lot of criteria will make it harder for, you know, people to game the system.
Rain?
I don't know if you guys already do this, but maybe have like multiple or like at least one, I don't know how to put this, not necessarily witness, but like have a parent sign off that that the student did do it on their own, and then it has to like be confirmed by a parent, because I don't know, yeah, you can still game it, but that would just be one more level of like confirmation that they did do it by themselves and didn't have a tutor or sibling do it for them.
To clarify, are you talking about like if students write an essay or if students?
Either that or taking a test, because like even so, like a sibling could do the test for them, like unless there's, do you guys hold the test in person or is it digital? Like, has it been in the past, I mean?
In the past, it has been in person, yes.
Oh, so with the test, oh, so yeah, if you were to do an essay, yeah, I would probably get somebody to sign off on it, like a parent. And if the more, the better. Like, I know that some people don't have multiple parents or guardians, but have multiple confirmations that like they did in fact do the essay and it wasn't done by somebody else.
Thank you to both of you. I think Ms. Lum has a question or comment.
I have a question that some of these student testimonials have prompted me to ask back, so to speak, with regards to kind of more objective data, especially as it relates to socioeconomic status. Obviously, socioeconomic status is not something that is controllable by BPS and is actually endemic of structural and historic inequities. Given that, however, clearly the zip code model was not perfect in terms of the temporary policy. I was wondering if students and or parents have any thoughts about utilizing school investment. That way, there are, I'm sure, through DESE, ways to evaluate other districts and their investments in students and schools, as well as charter schools and their investments, private schools and their investments, as a way to correlate to student success and figure out if there's a weight in that system. And maybe I'm oversimplifying statistical analysis, but just trying to think of more objective measures that we might be able to use. And just, again, asking for people's thoughts or opinions.
Zena, could you clarify the investment, right? Like what that would measure?
Well, we all know even within BPS, the investment per student varies from school to school, with some districts or some neighborhoods not getting the level of investment, both public and private, that other schools get. And I believe the opportunity index, which is specific to BPS, does correlate some of that factor, school investment factor, against student success. So I'm wondering if that is data that is collected for schools across the board, whether they're public or private, and regardless of district, that might be a way to create some level of objective correlation that isn't like different ways of grading and different ways of different tests that are being administered.
So Ms. Lum, if I'm hearing your question right, I guess you're asking if any students have thoughts about using students' socioeconomic status within schools. So like taking into account how wealthy and resource schools are?
Actually, yes. So it would be more the socioeconomic of the school as opposed to the students and their families.
All right. So does anyone have any thoughts towards Ms. Lum's question? Like, should we take into account how resourced schools are? The schools that students are applying from?
Rain and Emmanuel, you are both already have permission to talk. So if you want to say something, you can just talk.
I think yes, in a way. I mentioned this earlier, how like if it was like possible to like have a certain amount of seats allocated to a number of students from all the BPS schools, because like I said, some BPS schools, like middle schools, elementary schools, have more resources than others. As well as like private schools, like how some private schools have a lot more resources. So I do think taking that into consideration could be a good possibility. You know, like trying to have, like I mentioned before, like there's so many kids at BLS from certain middle and elementary schools that are more resourceful and like had those like advanced classes and things like that. So like definitely taking into account schools that might not have the best resources and have more like underprivileged students, I do think that would probably be a good idea.
Thank you. Does anyone else have thoughts about this question? Does anyone else on the task force have any specific questions or comments for students?
And again, if anyone listening in has anything to say, feel free to raise your hand.
Well, I see no more raised hands. So okay, I'm going one last call. Anyone else who would like to share, feel free to raise your hand. But in the meantime, oh, Ms. Tong.
Well, I really appreciate the questions and the advice of the attendees that we've heard from. And I'm just curious if there are any students or alum who did not attend an exam school. If you have anything to add to this conversation about your opinions about admissions policy.
I see 2 raised hands. Jessica? Jessica, please unmute yourself. Okay, then I will try Shen Gong Yang again. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Just want to share a little bit about the thoughts about the exam. Okay, so it looks like lots of people don't like the exam, but if we want to decide who will win the volleyball or basketball champion, what do we do? We decide who is the champion without the race, without the competition. If there's a limited resource, we have to work for it. We have to make our effort to earn it, right? So now there's like a, for example, the exam score is a limited resource. Everybody would like to use the resource. So if this is not unlimited, there is a way to distribute it for the performance, for the students' performance. The most accurate or fair way, just use their performance. So what we need to measure the performance, their achievement. Different exam, if you say mathematics and ELA is not good enough, then add whatever you think you should add to the exam. But I think use the exam score as a standard or criteria for the admission. It's probably not perfect, but this is the most fair way and most objective way. And with this standard, I think we can avoid lots of potential manipulation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'll put out the last call for any additional comments. But in the meantime, since I'm seeing no one else, I will say that I am very grateful to everyone who shared their thoughts, opinions, and experiences today. I know that I and the rest of the members of this task force have learned a lot from you, and we will come away from this conversation with a lot on our minds, and a lot of various factors to consider as we begin to actually design what our recommendations for policy will be. Again, this task force meets regularly every Tuesday and Friday night from 5 to 7. And all of you are welcome to come and listen in and sign up to speak if you want to. So yes, thank you again for being here. But I do see one more raised hand from the attendees.
Giselle Connor, please unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Jessica Alvarez. My son is his name is Jessiel Colon Alvarez, and my question is about the test. I know he was he is accepted, but I would like to know if he still had to take the test or don't.
Sorry, you said he is what?
He is, well, he's ready to go to school already, right? Because I got a letter let me know that he is in, but I would like to know if he have to take the test.
Oh no, I don't think he.
I can hear you. Oh.
Sorry, I was on mute. What I was saying is, if he was accepted into the school already, he will not have to take the test. He is already set for next year.
All right, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, yes, we meet every Tuesday and Friday, and you are welcome to prepare comment and share what your thoughts are, or just listen in. And I believe Simon and I can also put our emails in the chat. So if you would like to reach out to us one-on-one, you are also free to do so. Are there any other thoughts from task force members?
Just thank you so much for taking the time to attend and speak.
All right. I think we are ready to close then. So Ms. Parvex, could you please call roll?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Nagasawa. Mr. Acevedo,
Here.
Ms. Aguirre, Mr. Kreger, Mr. Kreger?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. Mr. Chernow,
Here.
Ms. Lam, Ms. Nagasawa,
Here.
Ms. Tang,
Here.
Mr. Contampasis.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you both for
Thank you, everybody.
co-facilitating. Job well done.